Ladies and gentlemen, it is happening. The Department of Justice just dropped the hammer on the radical anti-ICE mob, and Democrats absolutely losing their minds. So what started as peaceful protest has exploded into a federal sweep, indictments, arrests, and even a warning from DHS that attacks against ICE agents have skyrocketed 8,000%. Guys, let that number sink in for a second, okay? 8,000%. Like, you don't get a spike like that without something bigger going on behind the scenes. Yes or no? Now, tonight, I'm going to go ahead and pull back the curtain on what the media will not say out loud. The so-called activists that are blocking ICE vehicles in Chicago, they weren't just random protesters. They were Democratic candidates, campaign staffers, and left-wing influencers trying to build political careers on chaos. And now, thanks to President Trump's Department of Justice, the DOJ, they're facing federal charges that could put them behind bars for years. Those same people spent years screaming that ICE was the enemy. Meanwhile, ICE agents were being doxxed, stalked, and attacked in record numbers. They called it civil disobedience. DHS calls it domestic extremism. But here's a twist. After years of Democrats weaponizing outrage for clout, the outrage just turned around and bit them on the, use your imagination. Anyway, so the mob that they created has become the monster that they cannot control. Now, I'm going to break down who got indicted, why DHS just raised the alarm, and how President Trump's DOJ is sending the very clearest message yet. If you attack law enforcement, if you threaten ICE, if you cross that line, your protest days are over. Now stick with me, guys, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how all of this connects: the indictments in Chicago, the federal crackdown that just dropped, the surge in violence, and the Democrats' total meltdown over losing control of their Frankenstein movement. Folks, hit the like button, subscribe. The hammer has officially dropped. The Department of Justice just confirmed a nationwide, all 50 states, wave of indictments targeting the so-called anti-ICE activists who thought that they could harass, vandalize, and obstruct federal officers with zero consequences. Now, for years, these mobs surrounded ICE facilities and blocked deportation buses and claimed that they were defending human rights. Okay. But as we speak, the DOJ has already charged 97 individuals with crimes ranging anywhere from assault to conspiracy to impede federal officers. Now, think about that for a second. Okay. 97 people who thought breaking the law made them heroes. And these aren't just some nameless radicals. Some of them are local politicians, campaign staffers, even aspiring members of Congress. President Trump's Justice Department ain't playing no games, okay? They're sending a message loud and clear. If you interfere with law enforcement, you're going to face justice. And now the left is scrambling. There's no other word for it. They're screaming political prosecution. The left is panicking because their own activist base is finally being held accountable. They thought that the mob tactics were free speech. The DOJ just reminded them crime is not a constitutional right. So now I want to talk about the face of this fiasco, Kitab Ghazal, a Democrat congressional candidate from Illinois who proudly filmed herself blocking ICE vehicles and posting it on social media like it was a TikTok challenge. I mean, she just wanted to go viral and get likes, get more TikTok sign-up subscribers and whatever, but she wasn't protesting. She was obstructing federal officers in the middle of an active enforcement operation. And yes, she is now facing up to 14 years in prison. That's right, guys. This woman tried to make herself the AOC of Chicago, but instead of heading the Capitol Hill, she might be heading the federal prison for the next 14 years. Now, what's even worse, she's still calling it a political witch hunt. She claims she was just checking on another protesters. She was checking in on another, come on now. But video evidence and witness testimony show otherwise. Her group surrounded an ICE vehicle, banged on the hood, etched the word pig into the side, and blocked it from moving. This is the modern left, guys. Performative activism masquerading as courage, but when the cameras stop rolling, reality sets in. The DOJ isn't filming a TikTok. They're filing federal indictments. Now imagine this. Invest in every sector you love with just one stock purchase. 3D Capital listed on the CSE under ticker symbol IDK. In the US, under ticker symbol IDKFF. It is a risk diversified basket of 60 plus vetted investments. Get founder level exposure, the kind that most investors can't access, and in some of the hottest sectors: blockchain, AI, IoT, biotech, natural resources. One such company is AIML Health, okay? AIML Health Amel has just gone commercial using AI to predict heart events and analyzing PPG and ECG files into actually accurate, actionable numbers in seconds and minutes rather than days or weeks that it normally takes, further saving lives. Now, this is believed to be the biggest breakthrough in heart diagnostics in 60 years, folks. By comparison, current wearable market data is almost useless for consumers, and it's too slow on a professional level. Now, 3D Capital is led by a CEO whose last venture returned 150x. Now, 3D is currently trading at an 80% discount to its asset value per share, before even considering the growth story potential, and they're actively buying back and deleting shares. The world's highest returning investments usually come from founder level access. Think of 3D as your ETF index for early stage disruptive innovation. Subscribe to their YouTube channel, watch the trailer linked down below, and even leave a comment for a chance to win $1,000 USD cash giveaway. I'll leave a link for you guys down below for that one. Now, don't just invest. Get the bragging rights that comes along with being a first mover with 3D Capital, listed on the CSE under ticker symbol IDK and on the US under ticker symbol IDKFF. Now, I am not an investment advisor, and nothing in this presentation should be considered investment advice. Always conduct your own due diligence making any investment decisions. This video has been sponsored by phkinvestments.com. Now, folks, you want to talk about unprecedented? Let me tell you something. DHS just confirmed it. An 8,000% surge in death threats, doxing, physical assaults against ICE agents. 8,000%, guys. That ain't no typo, okay? That is a national security crisis unlike anything we've ever seen. ICE officers are being stalked online, their home addresses leaked, their families threatened, and even in some cases, their vehicles are being ambushed while conducting operations. These men and women aren't politicians. They're law enforcement agents. They risk their lives enforcing immigration law, and yet they've become the favorite punching bag of America's activist class. DHS officials have said that the violence has reached levels we haven't seen in modern history. Now, think about that, guys. Federal agents being targeted simply for doing their jobs. Oh, and where's the outrage from the left? Where's the outrage from the left? CNN, MSNBC? Y'all hear them? Yeah, I don't hear them either. Nowhere. So instead, we hear silence, or worse, we hear excuses. The same people who lecture us about defending democracy, they can't even defend the agents who protect our borders. So when law enforcement becomes the enemy in your political movement, you're no longer defending democracy. You're undermining it. This is not resistance. This is lawlessness, and it is finally catching up with them. So here's the really uncomfortable truth, folks. This surge didn't happen in a vacuum. It's been fueled for years by Democratic rhetoric that compares ICE agents to Nazis and paints border enforcement as racist or fascist. You remember when politicians in so-called sanctuary cities encouraged civil disobedience when they told activists to make ICE feel unwelcome? Well, they did. By targeting their homes, by threatening their families, by vandalizing their vehicles. Every time a left-wing politician demonizes law enforcement, somebody out there takes it literally. DHS officials, they are now saying political rhetoric has directly contributed to this wave of threats and violence. And the talking points of abolish ICE and defund enforcement turned into physical action. Bricks thrown through windows, mobs outside of offices, and ICE agents afraid to drop their kids off at school. Democrats can't wash their hands of this one. You can't feed people outrage for years and then pretend like you're shocked when the outrage explodes in violence. These radicals follow the message that they were given. Now their heroes are being indicted right before them. And it's happening in neighborhoods everywhere. One neighbor says, I called here and saved money on my Medicare plan. Another one says, they helped me keep my doctor. Hey, word spreads. And before long, the whole block knows. But this is why I partnered with Chapter, because Chapter has built this amazing reputation that people just can't stop talking about when it comes to Medicare. So let me go ahead and ask, do you want to be the last house on the street to make the call? Most people are already dialing that phone number right there on the bottom of your screen, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. To be honest, if your wait time is a little longer, I just click the website. Click the link, takes about 30 seconds, and they'll call you back. Oh, and don't take my word for it. Listen to what viewers are saying. Look, Andreas Martinez said, thank you, Ron, for referring Chapter. I switched to a much better policy. God bless you, Amanda. God bless America. Amen. So President Donald J. Trump, he is not blinking. In fact, Trump is doing exactly what his supporters expected him to do. restore law and order. Now, after years of activists taunting ICE officers, doxing them online, and disrupting federal operations, the Trump administration is making it clear there's a new sheriff in town and the days of chaos are over. Now, ICE officials have gone on record saying, we're closing in on 3,000 apprehensions and we're going harder now. Now, that's not campaign talk. This is operational reality. Trump's DOJ has empowered ICE to enforce immigration law without apology or hesitation. And these latest indictments prove it. No activist blockade, no Twitter mob, and no sanctuary politician is going to stop these missions. Now, what's happening now is a full circle moment. The same people who spent years screaming that Trump was out of control are now watching as he restores control through lawful enforcement, through indictments, through a Justice Department that actually acts like a Justice Department. I mean, you call it a crackdown if you want, but President Trump calls it leadership. And the results? ICE morale is up, border arrests are up, and the left's intimidation tactics are collapsing under federal pressure. And so here's where it gets absolutely ridiculous. So while ICE is out there risking their lives, the activists are online farming sympathy clicks like it's a career path. You got people turning their arrests into merch lines, hashtags, GoFundMe campaigns. You really can't even make this stuff up, guys. I mean, I'm waiting to see like some crazy Etsy listings just go viral, right? Selling all this merch. One of these anti-ICE protesters literally built their entire political identity around being shoved by an officer, not around policy, not around reform, but a 5-second clip that went viral. Yes, that is the new left, guys. What I call the victimhood economy. They don't run on policy. They run on pity. They want views, not votes. I mean, you can see it on TikTok, on Instagram, even on YouTube Shorts. They treat every confrontation as content. And so now that some of them are actually being indicted, they're doubling down, calling it proof of oppression. No, it's proof of accountability. It's proof of being an idiot. The irony is rich, guys. For years, they were saying that ICE was out of control. But the only thing that's out of control is their addiction to outrage. They thought social media fame was basically a shield from the law. The DOJ just reminded them, federal court doesn't care how many followers you have, okay? I mean, we've talked about the crackdown and the chaos, but now we need to dig a little bit deeper into the problem. How Democrats just turned politics itself into a vibe, and how Chicago became ground zero for the collapse. Now, here's the truth that nobody in the media wants to say out loud. The Democrat Party has turned into a cult of vibes, feelings over facts, optics over outcomes. They don't care if something works, only if it sounds morally righteous or it gets a few million views on TikTok. That's why you've got politicians who campaign with megaphones instead of policies, and you got protesters who think that chanting abolish ICE is somehow the same as fixing immigration. It ain't the same. The activist candidate from Illinois is the perfect example of this collapse. She wasn't campaigning on solutions. She was campaigning on content. Every arrest, every confrontation, every photo with handcuffs, that became a new brand moment, a new t-shirt to sell on Etsy. That's not politics. That was performance art, and it's contagious. You got young Democrats across the country copying it, treating posts and protests like red carpet events. But here's the twist, guys. It doesn't win elections. Americans want stability, not this chaos nonsense. They want leaders who defend the border, not block the agents who are protecting the border. Okay? The Democrat Party has mistaken emotion for leadership. And now, under President Trump's America First administration, that illusion is shattering in real time. Vibe politics doesn't stand a chance against federal indictments. Now, if there's one city that captures the whole mess, it's got to be Chicago. The protests, the blockades, the indictments, all roads lead there. And most residents are blaming their mayor, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. The Broadview ICE processing center has become a magnet for radical demonstrations, with activists camping out in the driveways, blocking buses and taunting federal officers. Chicago politicians either turn a blind eye or just outright encourage it, creating this crazy, wild feedback loop that's nothing but chaos and finally catching up to them. So this wasn't spontaneous. This was organized. Federal prosecutors are now saying that these same networks funding sanctuary city protests, they were also coordinating these social media campaigns to smear ICE and disrupt operations. these aren't innocent kids with signs. They're a part of a structured movement that crossed the line from protest into obstruction. And so now those same individuals, some running for local office, some already elected, they're being exposed as federal defendants. Chicago has officially gone from city of broad shoulders. The DOJ's crackdown there isn't political, it is necessary. Because when state and city leaders refuse to uphold federal law, someone has to step in. And that someone, once again, is Donald J. Trump, President Trump's DOJ. Now, we've seen Chicago fall apart under the activist politics, but this movement isn't just local. It's national, all 50 states. I mean, let's break down how this anti-ICE rebellion spreads across America and why the DOJ's nationwide crackdown is only just now getting started. Because what started in Chicago is now going national, okay, guys? The Department of Justice has just confirmed that this wave of indictments isn't isolated. This is part of a huge coordinated federal crackdown across multiple states, from Illinois to California, New York to Oregon. The same pattern keeps repeating. Anti-ICE activists staging these peaceful protests that quickly escalate into harassment, vandalism, and obstruction of federal operations. So under President Trump's leadership, the DOJ has quietly been building cases for months. Federal investigators have reviewed hours of footage, subpoenaed social media accounts, and tracked coordination between activist groups that have crossed the line into criminal conspiracy. Almost sounds like racketeering to me. The result? Dozens more arrests are expected. Now, this is what accountability looks like. For years, these groups hid behind slogans like "No human is illegal" and "Abolish ICE," convincing themselves that breaking federal law was an act of virtue. But now, the Trump administration is treating them exactly as they should be treated. Not as activists, but as offenders and criminals. And the irony, these same people spent years calling Trump authoritarian. Yet the moment law enforcement actually enforces the law, they cry oppression. Sorry, hate to tell you this, but it's not oppression, guys. That's justice that's catching up with your butt. It's justice catching up with hypocrisy. Now, this crackdown is more than a legal story. This is a political earthquake, and it's unfolding. The Democratic Party is now saddled with a massive problem of its own making. They spent years defending these activists, embracing their slogans, and courting their online followings. But now, with the arrest mounting and the DOJ making its move, Democrats, they're being forced to really answer the one question that they never were prepared to answer. Do you stand with law enforcement, or do you stand with the mob that attacked it? It's really a lose-lose situation. Because look, if they condemn the activists, then they will alienate the far-left base that fuels their donations and social media engagement. But if they defend them, then they look soft on crime heading into 2026. So either way, it's chaos, and the American people are watching it unfold, waiting to see what's going to happen next. Meanwhile, President Trump's approval rating among independents is steadily ticking upward, guys, going up. Voters are tired of seeing these lawbreakers that are treated as victims and police treated as villains. The Democrats thought that outrage was like a winning strategy of some sort, but all it's done is brought them indictments, infighting, and embarrassment. The message from voters is simple. Law and order wins every time. So there it is, guys. The hammer has dropped. Nearly 100 activists indicted, a Democrat candidate facing 14 years in prison, and DHS confirming an 8,000% surge in the threats against ICE. This isn't random. This is the direct result of years of reckless rhetoric, fake activism, and politicians who thought that they could just play with fire without getting burned. Well, Trump's DOJ just reminded the entire country what real accountability looks like. And now the left's resistance movement it's discovering something that they never expected. When you pick a fight with federal law enforcement, you don't get viral fame. You get a court date. Like, subscribe, share this video if you stand with law and order. And as always, stay tuned because this story is not over yet. The indictments have only just begun. We'll see you next time.